Good evening there, everybody. What is happening? Hopefully, you all are having a wonderful day today. So, when it comes down to it, I thought, of course, that I would give my little opinion and review this little video that I thought would be very particularly interesting. And this is going to be a video, I believe, by that of DontaesBoxingNation. I did want to release other videos and other projects that I've been working on, but unfortunately, there's just been so many outside factors going on, and on top of that, I felt sick, which has kind of, unfortunately decreased, overall the amount of projects that I've been able to work on at the current moment in time. But that being stated, overall, I did at least want to put a couple of videos out while I am feeling a little bit better, so I can at least give you guys my personal opinion and my analyzations on current events. That being stated, we're going to be talking about this, and we'll also be talking about a couple of other subjects as well. I may even personally talk about the World Series, tonight, depending on, what ends up happening. But we'll see what ends up happening. I've never really commented on MLB baseball before, but overall, because the LA Dodgers, because of course this is a big occasion. If Shohei Ohtani ends up winning his second World Series, I may end up talking about it, but we'll see. But that being stated, there have been rumors about a possible Terence Bud Crawford versus Janibek fight, which of course would be a humongous fight. Now, of course, Janibek, I believe, in the up and coming months, I believe in either November or December, he has a big fight against that of an Erislandy Lara. And of course, for anyone that has been around my channel for a while, you would know that, one of my favorite fighters, actually two of my favorite fighters, that they were both Caribbean fighters. That one was Miguel Cotto, of course, from Puerto Rico, and of course, another one was Erislandy Lara from Cuba. Erislandy Lara was actually one of my favorite fighters growing up. I believe when I seen the Canelo Alvarez versus Erislandy Lara fight, I think that I would have been probably around 15, 16 years old. And at the first time I watched it, the first couple of times I watched it, I thought that Erislandy Lara clearly won that fight. Growing up, of course, I can now see why many people gave Canelo Alvarez that fight, or why many people debated that it could have went either way. But Lara, I always looked at as a genius defensive tactician, and someone that, in my view, was a massively, massively underrated fighter, someone that was a very dangerous fighter. But he is facing Janibek next. He is about 42 years old. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to pull it off at this age, but we'll talk about that as it goes in as well. But the question is, overall, once again, how will a Terence Bud Crawford versus Janibek fight look? And, of course, I ended up getting my fight prediction about the Canelo Alvarez versus Terence Bud Crawford fight wrong, which, of course, I'll talk about some of the factors in that one as well. But just in my personal opinion, just taking a look at it on the surface, without doing much investigating at the current moment in time, or without giving it much of a further analyzation, it would appear, at least to me, that Janibek, in my view, could probably give Terence Bud Crawford a tougher fight than what a Canelo Alvarez did. But we'll talk about that, more than likely as the video goes along. But let's get into it. Let's see what Dante's Boxing Nation has to say.
Yeah! Good? Go ahead, sir.
And for Terence, are you ready to feel the Mexican power, Terence?
Oh, yeah. I'm ready.
This guy's got a whole 2-minute intro overall telling people how wrong they were about the Terence Crawford versus Canelo Alvarez fight. Oh, man.
Keep Canelo's name out of your fucking mouth, Terence Crawford. There's levels to this, and he's levels above you.
A lot of people that say that Crawford can beat Canelo.
This man's got a whole trailer.
No problem. I mean, I respect that. I just think they're stupid. I mean, shoot my language, the size difference.
Anyways, we're going to rewind past a little bit of this because I don't want to make the video extra long, but you can tell Dante, of course, is grinning ear from ear at the fact that Terence Bud Crawford, the man that he has claimed that was the true #1 pound-for-pound fighter of this era, that he beat Canelo, and also the fact that Canelo, that he stated that Canelo was the most overrated fighter because, of course, since this happened, this basically means for a lot of people that he was right all along. And, I've been reviewing Dante, of course, for a while. We all know that he's been wrong on many other things, such as the Deontay Wilder-Tyson Fury thing and, many other things as well. But, I mean, the point is that because this fight was of such magnitude, whoever, of course, was right or wrong about this occasion, they're going to look that much better or that much worse because this was the biggest fight probably of the past, I don't know how many years. But anyways.
A bigger man.
A clogged drain is a pain.
Hey, Johnny, we're here next. Looking for you. Looking for December 6th, how you gonna do it?
I got my eyes on you, Janibek. Good luck.
So we finally hear from the horse's mouth. Terence Crawford, he calls out Janibek on camera. For those of you guys who don't know, Janibek, he's the undefeated middleweight unified champion. And clearly Bud is aiming to be a 4-division undisputed champion. He's already the only man to...
Janibek, in my personal view, is someone that can really, really box. He is a great all-around boxer. Now, the problem is that there's just not enough information on him because he hasn't really fought anybody, in my view, that could really test his capabilities. So there's no really, there's no telling, really, in my personal view, whether I would favor him over Terence Bud Crawford or not, because he hasn't really faced anybody, in my personal view, that would put him anywhere near on that same level. Now, could he get in the ring against Terence Bud Crawford and possibly defeat him? I mean, maybe, but it's a little bit tough because although Janibek probably is someone that's naturally bigger than Crawford, Crawford seemed to handle the weight gain very, very well. And he seems to be someone that, in all honesty, could fit at 160 like there's no problem there. I'm not saying that he's quite as big as guys like a Canelo or, a Gennady Golovkin or something like that. But he's definitely someone that could fit there a lot better than what I once thought that he could. And he still overall has pretty decent stamina there and great speed and very decent power. So Crawford, even at the middleweight division, he fits there quite well. He's someone that, to be quite honest with you, you could even debate could be a 154-pounder the way that he fits so well at 160 pounds. Because even other fighters that I take a look at, when they're at 168, like Canelo, for example, when Canelo is at 168, you can tell that he's clearly outsized there. When you take a look overall at Sugar Ray Leonard at 160, you can tell that he's a little bit outsized there. But Crawford is someone that, appears to at the very least, fit at 154 quite well. So it could be, fair to argue maybe that Crawford, that maybe he could even be a natural 154-pounder because he's a very big dude. And that's not me, once again, at all claiming that, excuse me, that there is any excuse overall as to why he beat Canelo Alvarez. It's just overall that Crawford, he may be a little bit bigger than once I even thought once upon a time. But anyway.
Become a 3-division undisputed champion in the 4-belt era. So if he goes after the middleweight undisputed crown, he's only competing against himself, breaking his own records. There's no doubt about it. Terence Crawford versus the middleweight unified champion Janibek, that's the best fight to be made at 160. But the problem is Janibek, he's fighting against the other middleweight champion, Lara, in December, and I don't think he's going to win that fight. And it seems like everyone is already talking about Crawford versus Janibek as if, once again, Janibek getting past Lara is a foregone conclusion. But I've been studying
Well, I'll have to do a little bit more studying as I have not done in-depth studying for that fight as of yet. I'm not exactly sure when that fight occurs, but I believe that fight probably happens at least about a month or after or more, probably out, but we'll see. But if you were going to ask for my early prediction, without overall doing much studying of the fight, because I have watched both of these fighters, I do not personally see Erislandy Lara winning this fight. And the reason why I state that is because Erislandy Lara, although he is a great boxer, he's someone that, especially in recent years, he's someone overall that has really, kind of lowered the amount of volume that he throws. He's always been someone that has very much relied on accuracy. But even in recent years, he's really decreased the volume. And he kind of has to a certain degree because he's a lot older. He's someone that does not have the same legs that he once did. And Lara, in order to be mainly successful, especially in his biggest fights, that is mainly how he's going to have to win. He's going to have to use his legs. He's going to have to use his reach. He's going to have to basically use that distance type of tactic. That's just mainly the type of fighter that he is. Now, he can fight on the inside to a certain degree, but in a fight like this, I just don't see how he would really want to fight like that. Now, from what I've seen of Janibek, he's very powerful. He's strong. He's someone overall that is consistent, but he also could throw a little bit more volume as well. And he does need to be careful against Erislandy Lara because Janibek also at times can be a tactician or tactical, and he's someone overall that also can at times rely a little bit too much on accuracy, at least from what I've seen. So he needs to make sure against Lara that he's not playing into the game of, I'm just going to constantly, out accuracy you, and I'm just going to constantly outdo you in that category. He needs to make sure overall that he is consistent and that if he can't, out technique Lara in certain ways, that he can at least outdo him. That's what he needs to make sure to do, so we'll see. But Lara, in my view, is just going to be a little bit too old. I don't think that he has the legs. I don't know if he's actually even a complete 160 pounder. He looks a little bit undersized for that weight class. And Lara is also someone that he has a title, but he pretty much won that title because Gennady Golovkin basically retired, or he basically did not want to fight him. So, I mean, that pretty much was, the reason why he won the title. And I don't think Lara has defeated anybody there that has been truly legit. So, we'll see.
Big a lot. And I can tell you, man, when he fought against other southpaws, he looked extremely vulnerable. He was getting outboxed on the outside, on the inside. He was getting outworked on the inside. And this was against weak opposition. This was against guys that he was supposed to completely blow away. In fact, even the commentators were saying that this was supposed to be an easy fight for Janibek, but it turned out to be very difficult fights for him. So I truly...
We'll see once again. So far, pretty much from what I've seen from Janibek, he pretty much has dominated thoroughly everyone that I've ever seen him face. But to be honest with you, because his level of competition has not really been that good, I have not watched a lot of his fights super duper in depth like that, meaning that I have not watched all 10 or 12 rounds. But that being stated, overall, I believe Dante when he states that Janibek had problems with certain fighters. But that being stated, we cannot always rely on that, as I've always stated. Take a look at Terence Crawford against Madrimov. He had a lot of problems against him. Many people, including myself, thought that that was partially due because of the weight gain and everything like that. Then he ended up perfectly fine against Canelo Alvarez. Now, of course, Madrimov and Canelo definitely have different styles. There's no doubt about it. But I did think overall that the weight gain was a part of the reason why Crawford, overall had a little bit of an issue. And maybe he did. Maybe for Canelo, it just was an easier type of style for him to do. Or to compete against him. Maybe against Janibek. Maybe Janibek because he's more maneuverable at this point in time and also has better feet than what Canelo probably ever has, or ever did. Maybe Janibek will give him a much tougher fight. We'll see, or possibly beat Crawford. I don't know. But what I will state is that Janibek, we cannot rely, just off of one performance that was very, very tricky. Now, of course, we can rely on it to a certain degree, but, how many times have we seen a fighter have a troubling performance against one fighter, and then when they finally face that true fighter that they need to take seriously, it is a completely different ballgame. That's why, for example, when Dante predicted Inoue versus Fulton, and at the time I predicted Fulton as well, but Dante stated that he didn't think the fight was even going to be close, and he was basically basing that off of Inoue's fight against Nonito Donaire. Because it was very obvious to me that, especially after the rematch happened, that Inoue was not taking Donaire really that seriously in the first fight. He thought that Donaire basically was going to lay down and that he was going to go down after a couple of shots. And when he figured out differently, he knew that he was in for it. And he still ended up winning that fight, but not without his damages. He suffered a broken orbital eye bone in that fight. So we'll see. Janibek, the problem is with him is that I've not seen him overall in any of the bigger fights. So to me, it tells me a little bit more about how you struggle against top tier level competition than what it does really overall against the lower tier level competition because, a lot of fighters overall pretty much fight to the level of their competition. Now, if you're repeatedly struggling against lower or, B or C grade level competition, to where you're almost losing the fights repeatedly, then okay, then I have to take a look at it. Because then that tells me that, you are fighting to the level, that you're not just fighting to the level of your competition, but you're very similar to the level of the competition that you're fighting. Because you overall are in the mindset to where you still have to prove something and you're still not doing very well. Like Michael Conlon or certain guys like that. But anyway.
Believe that Edeslani Lara, at age 42, he's going to pull off the upset. But I'm hoping that I'm dead wrong.
I don't believe overall that he will. And, I always root for Edeslani Lara because I don't think at times that he always got the credit that he deserved. But I just don't see how he's going to do it. I don't think he's going to have the legs. I don't think that he's going to have the volume. He has accuracy, but if Janibek truly decides to get within his range, which is not really Edeslani Lara's style to begin with, and Janibek has quick enough feet and enough power and enough technique, in my view, to outdo Lara in certain ways, in order for Lara to truly win this fight, it would have had to have been about 10 plus years ago. And I just don't see overall, Lara winning this fight. But like I stated, I'll have to do more of a study because I have not done as much in-depth research on this fight as what I've needed to. But this is not the same Lara from the Canelo and Austin Trout fights. This is the Lara from, overall the most recent fights, so anyway.
Because Crawford versus Janibek is a bigger fight. But at the same time, if Lara beats Janibek, then that would make the Lara Crawford fight bigger than what it would have been. Now, I don't think it's an easy fight for Janibek or Lara, but I just believe Lara's going to win that fight. Now, something else that needs to be pointed out is the middleweight division is the land of the southpaw champions, because every champion at 160 is a southpaw. Terence Crawford is also left-handed.
Well, Carlos Adams is not a southpaw.
I mean, we call him a switch hitter.
Right, Terence Crawford is not a champion there yet, though. But I understand what Dante is trying to state. If Terence Crawford is aiming to become a champion there, then yes, it would become the land of the southpaw champions. Now, Lara, of course, right now is, a southpaw champion there. Janibek, I believe that he is a southpaw champion there. But Carlos Adams is not a southpaw champion there. But we'll see. Do I believe that Terence Crawford has a great chance to become a champion at the middleweight division? I personally do. I think that he'd probably beat Lara. I think that he'd have a great chance over Carlos Adams just because he fights very similarly to that of a Canelo Alvarez at this current moment in time, and sometimes, in my personal view, he doesn't have quick enough feet, in order to get on certain ranges, and Crawford has such a great reach and great boxing ability to where I think he can take advantage of those certain styles, but Janibek, in my view, would probably give him the toughest fight.
But really, he's more of a left-hander. And the best performance of Bud's career was against another southpaw, and that was against Errol Spence. So with Lara, Janibek, and Carlos Adames all being southpaws, I honestly believe that Adames might be Terence Crawford's most difficult fight at 160. Now, and of course, there was the sparring session that Crawford had with Adames where Crawford got the best of him, and he's most likely going to get the best of him as a pro as well. I'm not saying that Crawford is going to struggle.
Let me rewind that, actually.
Most difficult fight at 160. Now, and of course, there was the sparring session that Crawford had with Adames where Crawford got the best of him, and he's most likely going to get the best of him as a pro as well. I'm not saying that Crawford is going to struggle against Adames. I just believe that Adames, he will do better against Crawford than anyone else at 160. So with
I personally still believe that it would be more than likely Janibek. Adames, in my view, would not get enough in Crawford's range. I think that Crawford would be able to keep him at distance a little bit better, and I think that he would just be too maneuverable for Carlos Adames. Adames is a very, very good champion. He's someone that even proved to be a little bit better than what I once originally thought that he was, especially against Hamzat Shiraz. And Shiraz, he obviously has some holes in his game. He's very, very tall. He fights very tall. He's not someone overall that has a great amount of dimensions within his style. But still, with Adames at times getting hit with the way that he does and getting a little bit wild, I was a little bit surprised with how technical he was, at least with what I had seen him, previously. But that being stated, overall, this is going to be a very interesting fight if the Janibek versus Crawford fight happens. And I do believe more than likely that it will, if Crawford will go to 160 as what he states, because Janibek, I do believe, more than likely will defeat that of an Erislandy Lara.
That being said, it's been pretty dead since Crawford beat Canelo Alvarez, but it's going down at the end of November and the beginning of December, because we got the two best cards that we probably had in the last 6 or 8 months. And when I say the best card, I'm not just talking about the main event. I'm talking about the entire card. The last time That's a great, great card, and I'm taking a look at both of these right now. I'll have to do my fight predictions on these. I'm actually, they happen on December 6th, apparently, or at least that second one does. I'm not sure if they both happen on the same day or what. But both of these are great, great cards. You have David Benavidez versus Anthony Yard, Devin Haney versus Brian Norman, Isaac Pitbull Cruz versus Lamont Roach, Erislandy Lara versus Janibek, Stephen Fulton versus, I believe, God damn it, I can't ever remember this dude's name. Is it whatever the fuck his first name is, Foster. The dude, I believe, that recently became a champion at 130. Anyways. Had a card that good was probably back in February when it came to Turkey's ring card. And now we have the ring for November 22nd, and it's not on pay-per-view, guys. And there's some really good fights on that card. The main fight that everyone is talking about, of course, is Haney versus Norman. But you got Bam Bam Rodriguez.
That's a great, great fight. I believe that Jesse Bam Bam Rodriguez is also fighting that one Argentine fighter, Martinez, who ended up defeating one of the 4 weight division champion Japanese dudes, I believe, as of recently. If that's not the same one that he's fighting, let me know. But I believe that he's fighting that one smaller Argentine guy, which of course would be a very interesting fight to watch. And Devin Haney versus Brian Norman Jr., of course, is a great, great fight. Devin Haney will be looking to get back within the champion column, I believe. Do I believe that Devin Haney will more than likely win that fight? Probably not. I think that more than likely Brian Norman will win the fight, but we'll see what ends up happening. But of course, my predictions as of late, they have went a little bit askew. So we'll see if I can get these all right. Of course, that'll be my goal. But we'll see.
Rodriguez on that card. You got Abdullah Mason versus Sam Noakes, another really good fight. And you have David Benavidez versus Anthony Yarde, another good fight as well.
That'll be an interesting fight, but Anthony Yarde is someone to me that he's just okay. I mean, like Anthony Yarde, I think at best is maybe an A- level fighter, but I'm not even going to put him there. He's one of those guys that gives tough fights to some of these better fighters or even some of the better champions, but he's never really going to become a champion himself. He's almost kind of like a Luis Collazo or someone that would be probably a little bit higher than that. I'm not really quite sure how to compare him. He would pretty much be someone like that. He gives a tough fight to anybody that he faces. He's one of those fighters, but he's never going to be a champion.
Then PBC returns December 6th. I wish these cards were back-to-back, but unfortunately, we got to wait another 2 weeks to watch the other big card, the PBC card. Roach versus Pitbull Cruz. Lara versus Janibek, and Fulton versus Foster. Let me just start by saying this, man. That Roach versus Cruz fight, oh, man, I'm really looking forward to that fight because styles make fight.
That's going to be a very interesting fight because Isaac Pitbull Cruz is someone that is not the most technically sound in my view in certain things. He's very one-dimensional. And he's someone overall that, you kind of can guess where his offense is coming from. But that also being stated, he throws a lot of volume, especially if he keeps you up against the ropes. Now, I think that Lamont Roach Jr. has a little bit more in his toolbox, but it doesn't mean anything if you don't throw consistently throughout the whole entire fight. So Lamont Roach Jr. has all the tools to beat Isaac Pitbull Cruz, but he needs to be consistent throughout the fight. And one thing I noticed about Gervonta Tank Davis when he was facing him is that although I thought that he was getting the better of Gervonta Tank Davis throughout the majority of the fight, there were certain times to where he gave up certain rounds because he was not throwing enough.
And that fight is one of the best style matchups because Cruz, he's got that aggressive bobbing and weaving Mike Tyson style. He takes advantage of his short height. It's easy for him to go under punches, roll under punches, and come back up with counters. And he's been really successful with that style. Now, Roach, he comes forward as well, but he has a higher boxing IQ. And he could catch you with some sneaky stuff and hurt you, which is why I really want to see this fight because when it comes to Cruz's career, he doesn't get hurt too often. He hasn't really been knocked down. He certainly hasn't been knocked out. So if Roach does beat him, I want to see if he can do it more decisively than anyone else has. So with that being said, I'm going to wrap this video up. That's all I got for.
But anyways, that pretty much is about it for me in this video as well. We'll see overall what ends up happening. I'm going to be very excited to talk about every single one of those fights and release my projects, unfortunately, when I can release them, But we'll see overall what ends up happening. And, within these next few months, we actually have a lot of fights to look forward to. Not just those cards, but of course there's UFC. There's Islam Makhachev, I believe, versus that of Jack Dale and Madalena. I'll be talking about that here in a couple of weeks. And there's a couple of other ones as well that'll be interesting. But that being stated, that pretty much is about it for me today. As for the Crawford and Janibek situation, that's a fight that I would love to see. I'm not quite sure exactly 100% who I would favor at that fight because I just don't know enough information about Janibek, and I think that it's almost impossible to because we've never seen him in a very big fight before, and even against Lara, I do not think Lara would present all the challenges against a Janibek as what a Crawford would. So maybe early, maybe a Crawford, maybe Janibek, I'm not sure. But if I had to guess, I would predict that Janibek would probably at the very least give Crawford a tougher fight than what a Canelo did. Because I do believe that Canelo, he probably ran out of stamina in the second half of that fight because he did not think that he was, I think that he knew he was going to have to maneuver in the fight. But I don't think that he thought he was going to have to maneuver as much as what he did. And it tired him out overall in that fight, and on top of that, his feet obviously were a problem. And on top of that, Canelo's just not quite what he once was, but he also just was in the ring against a better boxer. It is what it is. But that being stated, that pretty much is about it for today. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see where this goes, because I would love to see that fight. But anyways, that's pretty much about it for today. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll talk to you all next time.